Altruism, an unselfish concern for the welfare of others, even at risk of yourself, without compensation. Pro-social behavior, donating or exhibiting behaviors that helps one or more people, such as giving care, compassion, empathy, altruism.
Bruh, why should I care?
It can help you. It can help us. The feel-good or do-good phenomenon is as such. We are biologically wired to help each other. It turns on little reward circuits in your brain and makes all those happy neurotransmitters. In a study, participants were given an envelope filled with money. They were told to either spend it on themselves or spend it on someone else. Those who spend it on someone else, happier. Another one, Dunn and Norton. They said if you remember one time you did good, that boosts your mood. Caroline Malone said that 200 hours yearly, or 3 to 4 hours weekly, or a few days a month of volunteering boosts your mental health. A 2015 study said that adding volunteering to your job correlated with better mental health and better work-life balance. The problem is it can work in reverse too. If you're sad, you're not going to do good. If you're not doing good, you're going to be in a bad mood.
Bruh, you literally got no proof, bruh.
176 participants, half in the control, half in the experimental, half girls, half boys, a mean age of around 13 and a half. 176. 3 hypotheses. School altruistic games will help improve adolescents' life satisfaction and emotional state by increasing positive emotions and decreasing the negative ones. And doing different games will have different effects on improving life satisfaction of people with different original emotional states. The control and the experimental group took part in 10 weeks of group activities, but the control group did ones on improving or decoding your intention. And the experimental one did SAGs, which are group games for altruism. Both the control and the experimental group took a 7-point Likert scale, self-report, happiness, and life satisfaction test that were revised to be in an Eastern culture rather than the Western culture, so to remove all cultural bias. First, the MSLSS, Multidimensional Student Life Satisfaction Scale. It had 6 subtypes with freedom, family, friends, school, and academic satisfaction. Now, all of those questions, the scores were added up so that the higher the number, the higher the life satisfaction. Secondly, the happiness scale with 2 dimensions, positive emotions with 6 questions and negative emotions with 8 questions. Now, you add up the scores again, and the higher the numbers, the higher either the positive emotions are or the negative emotions are. Now on to the SAGs. They were 2 weeks long, split in half with 2 different sections and 90 minutes for each session. The first SAG was on social responsibility, and the first thing they did was learn about Yong Long Ping, who was the father of hybrid rice. They first really researched him, and then they had to comprehend it, and then they had to present to the class as him. Secondly, they watched a movie on him and tried to really absorb the essence of giving back. Thirdly, they put in the work, and they volunteered. The next SAG was an interpersonal trust, where one person was a trust faller and would fall off a 1.4-meter platform, and the other one was the catcher and held up a bed to catch them. Now, they went in rotation, and afterwards, they talked about how that made them feel. Part 2, blind person and crutch, where the blind person was blindfolded and turned around 3 times so that they lose their sense of direction, and the crutch had to lead them through a bunch of obstacles until they reached the end. But don't forget the importance of body language. Ha! Could only use body language and gestures. Numero 1. The pyramid game, where you introduce yourself with your name and a unique aspect of yourself, and then you add it on to the chain of the other people so that the last person has to introduce everybody who has previously introduced themselves. Numero 2. Love at the fingertips. You separate into 2 groups and make 2 circles around each other, facing each other so that you're matched up with a person. Now, you can hold up between 1 and 4 fingers. 1 represents you don't want to be friends. 2 represents you can be nodding acquaintances. Number 3 represents I'd like to get you know you better. And then number 4 is we're besties. We're besties. Now, if you hold up the same finger, you make a gesture. Like, if you both are 1, you stomp your foot, you turn your heads away. Number 2, you nod and smile. Number 4, you hug each other. Get it? Now, if you don't hold up the same fingers, just stand still. Next SAG's empathy, where participants were made to focus on either left behind children who were separated from their parents before the age of 18, or disabled children who feel more vulnerable and their lives are less easy. The next part is negative emotion regulation, where participants would first have to identify their emotion and acknowledge that how it is impairing their growth. And then next, they would go into a strategy for regulation, which in this case was catharsis, where they could go into a catharsis room and beat up a doll. Bobo? Now this room also had mirrors that kind of warped their bodies, and that made them laugh. Now for the results. The results showed a significant increase in life satisfaction for those in the experimental group in areas of family, friend, and academic. And there was an increase in social and school for both, but the experimental really skyrocketed. On the emotional front, both the experimental and the control group increased in positive emotions and decreased in negative ones. Yet, the experimental group did about 3 times as much. The participants are initially rated in one of 3 levels of happiness: low, medium, and high. Those who had high happiness had a better result from the SAGs, were more generous, and more altruistic. This data showed that participants' life satisfaction and emotional state was increased by the group activities. So, I would apply this to my community in one of 2 ways. Firstly, teachers could start out their class with an altruistic game that also works as an icebreaker and increases interpersonal communication. Is by having different activities for people in different levels of initial happiness, so that they would choose what they're up to, and so that they use scaffolding in their proximal zone of development so that they're always challenged and they keep increasing the results. For example, one student who's not feeling like they have that much energy might go read a book to a first grader, and then another kid who feels like they're really up to it can go volunteer at a food pantry.